All right, man cave influencers, how you doing? Gonna have a little video for you today. Just want to say thank you for everyone for tuning in. Of course, I appreciate it. And we're getting the whole thing started on Rumble, so I don't have to be really editing anything or worrying about being canceled for saying certain things or speaking my mind. I do keep things somewhat respectful. I don't antagonize or really go out and attack people. I'll be really honest with you with that. But I like to make jokes and have fun because comedy is, well, it's a part of life. It gives us a way to escape reality sometimes. And it sucks that unfortunately we live in harsh times where everyone's ultra sensitive about things. But anyway, go tune into Rumble. I'll leave the link in the description box. So today's topic is going to be Tradwives. And very interesting that they're actually talking about this on the news. But I mean, it's the Hill. I don't know what channel they're on, but I saw it. It was just like, let's go look at this. So let's talk about Tradwives.
All right, guys out there, who would you rather marry? A girl boss or a trad wife? It seems like Gen Z is choosing the latter.
Well, to be honest, I mean, if you're telling me a boss babe or a woman that just gets a job or a woman that stays at home, the latter. I prefer to have a woman that can work but still be feminine. The whole boss babe thing is just another excuse for women to feel that they need to excel to the level of men instead of us having our own roles and still be able to work at the same time. But whatever.
According to a new article in The Federalist, the rise of the massively popular trad wife or traditional wife trend on Instagram depicting women happily remaining at home and raising the kids is following a reorientation of priorities for women away from the workforce and into the wifery. One trad wife, Hannah Nealman, has nearly 9 million followers on Instagram who attentively tune into content featuring her life as a mom on a hog farm in Utah. Here's one example of her content.
Some question whether this lifestyle is possible or even desirable. Nealmans is married to the son of JetBlue's founder with a net worth of nearly $400 million. This has led to accusations that this lifestyle only works for the ultra-rich. Others say the rise of the trad wife is just an excuse to push back on the gains made by feminists in the modern era and return women to a more subservient role.
See, I want you to understand how they use words. Subservient. Listen to the words they use. They always use words that sound a lot more harsh than they actually are. So you're saying that a woman that wants to stay home, well, only the ultra wealthy can do things like that. No, that's not true. You can take care of a family and have two people with $60,000 jobs combined, and you can still be able to have a family that stays home and takes care of the family. You just work out your schedules. See, the thing is, same thing could be said about feminism. Was a pushback to destroy the nuclear family, which is exactly what it did. Yeah, you want equal rights, but it also destroyed the family. There are less people having children nowadays than they ever have. And what is it? So women can be in the workforce because that's what women wanted. Women were more happier in the homes until big business said, and the government said, we need more bodies in our workforce. We need to put more bodies in the workforce so we can make more money. More people working means more money for us. So, we need to figure out a way to do this. Oh, I got it. Let's have feminism come in and say, you guys are slaves. You should get out and be able to work. And then now you got 2023, the term boss babe. And what is the problem? Now we have women who want to be like men instead of just being women who can work.
Here to discuss is author of this Federalist piece and a research associate at the Heritage Foundation, Emma Waters. Emma, welcome back to Rising.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Right. So a lot of this trend, I think, started during the pandemic, and a lot of women ended up leaving the workforce after their jobs went remote. This was talked about in the media as sort of a tragic trend about how they needed to actually figure out how to get women back to work. But a lot of women that I've talked to say that the pandemic basically reminded them that they actually enjoy being at home and enjoy taking care of their kids. Where did your inspiration for this piece come from, and what has been your experience in terms of the research that you've been doing on the rise of this tradwife trend?
So I'll be the first to admit that I was actually highly skeptical of the tradwife influencers for a long time and really critical of them. So similar to some of the criticisms that you hear, it's unrealistic. They're playing into a stereotype and they're trying to paint this one vision of womanhood, of what it means to be feminine, that's maybe just not representative of what most women actually want. But
Is that you have statistics to back that up? You have any proof that that's what women want? Ever notice that when people talk, they always say as if they are speaking on behalf of them and they know what they're thinking? Do you have statistics that prove that? And why is it's so hard for people to realize that that is possible? You don't have to be ultra wealthy to have a stay-at-home mom. Heck, just the whole point of working remotely, you can be home and still be around your children. You don't have to always put them in daycares. Not to mention how expensive it is to put them in daycares. Children are being raised by either television, tablets, or strangers. That is not healthy for a child. But you're saying that all these women they don't want to be stay-at-home moms. They want to be in the workforce. They want to get up early in the morning, hustle just like the men do, work 80-hour days. No, of course not. No, but that's what you're going to be pushing because you read a script.
as I was observing COVID and then even just the last few years, the changes we've seen in the way that women prioritize their time, I started to realize that even though these tradwife influencer accounts are usually showing the most extreme version of what it means to be a feminine homemaker at home with all of her children, that in many ways it was actually tapping into this deep need within Gen Z. I mean, the fact that she has 9 million followers, and I'm guessing a lot of those are moms of kids who probably aren't getting to live the kind of lifestyle that she is, that there is this inherent and like deep hunger among women to really be at home with their children. And I think many women experience the burnout of girl boss culture, of the corporate full-time work lifestyle where you're rushing the kids off to school or to daycare, you're getting to work, you're doing the best job that you can, and then you have to hurry and go pick them back up, and then dinner's ready. And then it just goes on and on. And COVID introduced this restful time where all of a sudden you could slow down, you could take time with your kids and really enjoy some of the more domestic arts that many aspects of our modern and especially urban life don't allow.
And it's called reality. That's how life works. You either are going to be this boss babe and you go back and forth and you go and pick up the children, you drop them off, go to work, hurry up. Hopefully your job will let you off on time, get your kids, come back home, and then cook dinner. Yes, that's what you fought for. You're saying that these women wanted this, you fought for this. The honest truth is, why is it a problem that we can't just look at the positive? We have to immediately say, oh, it's impossible to do it. You have to be a millionaire. No, it's possible. You just don't want to be honest and tell the people the truth that it is possible to do this because it goes against the narrative. And I'm not saying tradwife is just this all that ends all, is perfect thing. No, the honest truth is a lot of them, just like most people on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, whatever, they're hustlers. They're painting an idea. And the honest truth is, obviously it's working. You can stay a stay-at-home mom. Look at all the things I do, and it's traditional. And if you give someone the idea that what you're telling them is the truth, they will follow you. Just like you follow anyone that says that if you get the jab, you'll be fine. And we've proven that you clearly have lied about that, because if I got the jab, then why do I need to be safe around people who didn't? It's just like anything. You follow a trend, and that, especially on the internet, TikTok is the perfect place to do it. Because all you got to do is just say something or do something, and people will follow, because most people are sheep, and they will follow whoever tells them is the coolest thing to do.
And so all of that together, and just seeing the happiness that a lot of women were deriving from this, I thought it was something really important to consider more closely.
In the state I'm in right now, the state of Iowa, childcare is $865 a month on average. It seems really telling to me that we've seen kind of a correlation with this glorification, if you will, of stay-at-home mom influencing, right? Kind of romanticizing the idea of staying at home. I'm wondering, how much of this is coping with high childcare costs and not really having much of a choice to work a job where you're making potentially a similar amount of money instead, just staying at home and doing that work yourself instead of paying someone else out. I just don't think Gen Z would really want to go back to the 1950s, which I think is where a lot of this tradwife core comes from.
And that's the bias nonsense that we talk about. Oh, it's the 1950s. You want to go back to the 1950s? Oh, well, the 1950s, those are the worst time for women. They always go back to the 1950s. It's like with, the whole thing with the Ohs. I'm sorry, we're in America. We don't use that type of language anymore. We switch words and make it softer. Reproductive rights. We always hide behind incest and you know what. Instead of everyone else just being reckless with their vagina, or financially we're not capable of doing it, or the partner wasn't there, which all comes down to you were not on any form of birth control. We basically make every excuse, and we go as high as we can to make it seem like it's as bad as it is. No. Maybe people just want to be homemakers. And I gotta say, I gotta go, Mary, I gotta go there because $800 a month for childcare. It's like $1,000 where I am. And if you have a good job, you're not gonna get any discounts. You already know this. So it's just like we demonize. We're still talking about it, but we're demonizing, saying that, well, I mean, like it's the 1950s where women were getting beaten and they couldn't have no control over their finances.
When women couldn't have their own bank account or buy a car, it wasn't until the 19.
Wow, I didn't even see this yet, and it was like it's almost as if I read the same book that every woman goes to that is a millennial or one of these modern women, and the same college they go to. I know exactly what they're going to say.
60s that you could, but only with your husband's signature, and then finally in 1974, it became legal for women to have their own finances. And so I just don't think a lot of Gen Z women want to go back to that. But I can understand, whether it's financial constraints, meaning you're going to stay home and you want to romanticize your life for the internet, or you just like the idea of being home with the kids. But I'm skeptical that people want to go back to the actual world legally of what the 1950s was. What's your sense of that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And notably, credit card debt did not begin to skyrocket in the United States until women could have their own credit card without their husband's signature. So I'm not advocating we go back.
You see? Husbands were there for a specific reason, to keep things in order. Credit card debt. My mother, I love my mother to death, but she retired. She's no longer a doctor. She was always paying off credit card debt because she was always buying stuff, because I got the money. Now I can buy stuff. Women, they target women because they know they're going to buy stuff. You don't need that purse, but we're going to tell you that you need this purse. And in that purse, you can show it off to every other girl out there and say, I got the nice looking purse. And then that girl's going to say, well, I got to go out and get the nicer purse than you do. My nails, same thing. I got to get my nails. I got to get the best looking nails than everyone else. So everyone's going to try to top me. And then now I have to go and top that person to get the better nails. You're going to buy all this stuff you don't need. I remember my ex many years ago was complaining about her debt and talking about how she can't afford this, she can't afford that. And I said, all right, let me see your expenses. She was able to label down. And I said, you don't need this, cut this out, cut this out. She was like, oh, but I need cable. Why do you need cable and internet? Oh, but I have to watch TV. You have to watch TV? Why don't you just simply just not have TV? Like, $200? You need to spend $200 to have every room in your house with cable boxes so you can watch the same programs, or you can basically stream programs and just have the internet, or share your internet service like Netflix. Of course, now they cut down on that, but it's ridiculous. Like, They know that women are reckless with money. That's why they target them.
But I think there are some funny trends there. But when it comes to actual childcare, I think you're absolutely right. There are a lot of women who realize that I'm effectively working just to pay someone else to watch my kids. And while many women certainly have jobs that they really love and enjoy, a lot of times they come to the end of the month and they're like, I'm not sure that this is really worth it. And on top of that, I'm missing out on all the really sweet memories with my children that someone else is getting. My mother-in-law once said that she realized that everyone else was getting the best part of her kids. And then by the time she got them, they were tired, they were grumpy, and they were ready to go to bed. And frankly, she was too.
And that's the thing. That's why they keep trying to demonize it. Because it's that you're missing out on your childhood. I work crazy amount of hours, and I don't like the fact that I miss out on my son's life. But they won't tell you about that part. What they'll tell you about the great life of being like the boys and getting the jobs. They don't tell you that you got to work 80 hours like the men do. Just like the whole wage gap. They kept saying it was a myth. It's just that they figured out that men just worked a lot more hours. Women didn't want to work. They just wanted to do the bare minimum and just come back home and have that title that says that they worked it. The fact is, it's a lot of work, and you're going to miss out having children. Either you're going to have children and miss out on their life, or you're not going to have children and you're too old and dusty to have a child. But we don't want to talk about this. We want to keep saying, oh, it's the 1950s. Well, at least those women were in those children's lives and they were being raised by their parents, not strangers.
It's just not the sort of life she wanted to build with her children. And so if you look at studies that American Compass and the Institute for Family Studies have done, they've actually found that for a lot of women, sort of like self-reported goals, most women report wanting to work something between like a part-time job or just like a really flexible role. And for women in like lower incomes, they just don't want to work and have one part.
See, flexible roles. They didn't want to work. They wanted flexible hours because, yes, you don't want to work the crazy hours that they do. And two, you don't want to be confined when you want to get back home and rest at a certain time. You can get back home on time. Men don't have that option. We just work. We got to take care of the family. We work. Women, they want to work the bare minimum. Not all, but a lot of women want to work the bare minimum because they want to go home on time. Especially when their shows are on, spending $200 a month for a cable. It's the same program that you watched 2 days ago.
Partner bring in the money and then they can run the household, which like truly is a real skill in and of itself to run the household on a strict budget, to make ends meet and to really provide a beautiful life for your family. So I think to your point, no, most women don't want to go back to a space where you're really just sitting in the home. And I think a lot of people would argue that wasn't the 1950s, but I think it's important to go back to the even truer vision here, that ultimately men and women, husbands and wives, are called to join together in this shared vision of the home, this shared vision that they're called to as partners, and that they're to pursue that together. So this idea that women are at home cleaning and men are out doing the really important work was really a rare phenomenon even in the 1950s that clearly did not sit well with women. And so what I think is exciting is that the overcorrection that some of these tradwife influencers are presenting is hopefully bringing people back to a happy, normal state where women can engage in meaningful work, but also have time to raise their children, to be present with their husbands, and to build a community. Think of all the stats of loneliness and the lack of community, where even women now are reporting fewer and fewer close friends. It's hard to ignore that trend if you're thinking about full-time work, because frankly, when you're in the office all the time, like that is where your energy is going. So I'm hoping that like the outcome here is that we're just able to like reclaim a much happier and balanced life where women are able to do the work that they care about, but also receive the support and flexibility that they need to really build this anti-fragile and very happy life for themselves.
And there you go. I mean, no lies spoken. It's a lot of work to work in an office, to spend every day working, being responsible for things. It's not this whole thing where you go to 9 to 5 and then you go home. There's a lot of jobs where they got to work past the hour when they're not getting paid. They don't tell you that. You got to work those 80 hours. They don't tell you that. You lose out on your time with your children. They don't tell you that. The cost of living to pay for some stranger to watch your children. They don't tell you that. The glories of being a boss babe. And all the women that go on the line say, I'm a boss babe. I can afford this. I got my house. I got my education, all the things that men don't care about. And then not all of them, but a lot of them are lonely. They're lonely because they all fought hard to get that boss babe lifestyle, and they gave up a family to do it. because someone told them to. Remember, they're mostly followers. They are designed to follow. So when they lead, they don't understand they're still following. You didn't want to work these major jobs. You were told to because you followed their advice to do that. You used the 1950s to scare women. But what you don't do is that you realize that families were more cohesive and were together. Not being raised by technology, you were raised by the parents. A familiar face. Familiar faces that you could say, oh, I'm looking at you, this is this and that and that. Okay, here we go, I'm taking care of my family. No, you have a stranger doing it. You have no idea what that stranger is doing. You hope that those kids are taken care of. I'm not saying a kid watching a tablet is 100% bad. Educational programming can help a child learn how to read, learn how to write. It's not necessarily bad, but you still want a parent to be there to be involved with that child. And working crazy hours is not going to do it. And if you really want that boss babe life, you have to give up a family just to do that.
I'm still cracking up about the credit card debt comment because women do be spending, but a couple of statistics
women do be spending, yeah.
So the percentage of mothers who identify as stay-at-home parents has increased by about 10 percentage points in the last year to 25%. But we still see that 56% of U.S. mothers prefer to stay home. So I definitely think there is something to the argument from some that this lifestyle could be prohibitively expensive as we increasingly fall into this two-income trap. So what are some of the policies perhaps being proposed on a state or federal level that could make it easier for women to pursue perhaps part-time work or staying home entirely without sacrificing the fact that it is very expensive with inflation and the cost of housing now to just have one individual working outside the home?
You can have one working in the home. It's called remote working. That's how men, like Passport Bros, that's what they're doing. They're living in other countries, but they're still making American dollars in another country. You can work from home. So even if you do have someone that's watching your child while you're working, at least they're in your home. You can still make money. You don't have to be in the office. COVID, they had no choice. But they started having a problem even getting teachers to come back to the office to start teaching because they got too comfortable with being home, not have to put up makeup, not to have look all dolled up, not to put in effort. They could just stay home. The honest truth is, it's a lot of work. All you got to do is just stay home and just work remotely, and then you don't have to do much, and at least your children have you there.
Yeah, and so unfortunately, under the Biden administration, there really seems to be this targeted attack against working mothers. So there are a number of recent legislation or regulatory measures that have been introduced that I actually cover in an article for The Telegraph on Bidenomics and how it's forcing women back into work when maybe they don't actually want to be there. And so unfortunately, you're seeing things like the IRS is requiring reporting on even small purchases through PayPal or through Venmo, where a lot of women who work contracted or flexible jobs selling through Etsy or doing other work like that are able to actually have a really good flexible income that works for their schedule. They're now adding more reporting requirements, more time to it to make it difficult. There are a few other measures that they've introduced that, again, would just add more barriers to women trying to find these creative options for work. And on the positive side, that's what we have to be seen. I know a lot of people would really like to see a way of transforming daycare subsidies in a state and making it like an ESA or an education savings account. So the money that the state has quote unquote set aside for you to send your kids to daycare for free, what if you actually just gave that to the families and let them decide how they spend their daycare money? So maybe that's paying the mom to be home with her children, or maybe that's having a grandmother or another close friend be involved. And I think things like that really empower parents to spend their money and to utilize the resources that they have on a federal and state level in a way that really reflects their values. I think that's the direction a lot of policymakers are interested in going, and that's where we really need to encourage them to go.
Well, I'm gonna cut it off here, but the honest truth is that'll never happen. The politicians do not like you. Left, right, doesn't matter. They don't like you. You think they're going to try to help you to raise your families and take care of your kids when the whole point was that they wanted to destroy the nuclear family so they can get more butts in the buckets, A's in the seats? No. They want you to make money, and they'll sacrifice families. Now it's starting to come back to bite them in the butt because less people are having children. So now they have to change things and try to push women to try to still reproduce. Because if you don't have a next generation of women, of men and women making children, you're not making money because there's not another generation to make that money from. It's the government. This is all set up from the government. They don't care about you. They're telling you need to do this. You didn't ask, should I do this? You didn't tell them that I wanted to do this. They told you you should do this. And that's one of the biggest problems, that we don't realize this until it's too late. Some people are reactive, some people are proactive. And a large portion of people are reactive. The fact is, you can balance both without having to get this boss babe lifestyle that they push everywhere. And for that NPC that was over there talking about 1950s, we know who you work for. You're part of the problem of the destruction of the nuclear family. Certain groups just happen to get hit with it faster, and now everyone's getting hit with it. We won't say which group that is, but we all know who it was. The ones that like to pretend that history doesn't exist. But anyway, the fact of the matter is, it's a hustle, but it's not a lie. Tradwives is a hustle because like 9 million people, they all are into the hustle. They get it. And then there's some people that really do want to do it, and that's cool on them. But if we don't change things, a lot of you women are going to be single. That's what their whole prediction in 2023, 22, 30, I'm sorry, 32, that 50% of women are going to be single and childless. There's something to think about.